Hey there, welcome back to another video here on the channel. Today I'm in the 2024 Subaru Crosstrek Sport, and in this video I want to do a technology or infotainment system tour. So in these videos I'm going to walk you through all the technology for the gauge cluster itself, as well as the main infotainment radio screen, show you all the different menus, features, options like that you can control it and how to control it, and overall just show you some of the technology inside of this vehicle. Now this one, being a sport trim level, does have the 11.6-inch Subaru Infotainment Plus system, so it is the larger vertical infotainment system. If you get a totally base Crosstrek, that will come with a regular, I believe, 7-inch infotainment screen, which will be totally different than this one. But this should apply to most of the different trim levels for the Crosstrek lineup. This one does not have the built-in navigation, but that is going to be optional, I believe, on the premium trim, which is one step up from this vehicle. So overall, make sure to stay tuned, buckle up. There's a lot of helpful information here in this video. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. So before we get into looking at the digital gauge cluster itself, which is fairly basic in design in comparison to some vehicles, I want to run through the steering wheel controls, show you what all the buttons are for, and what they control in general. So on the left side of the steering wheel, you have your audio multimedia, main controls for the infotainment system itself, and then on the right side you have some drive mode as well as your driver assistance technology, including Subaru's EyeSight, adaptive cruise control, lane centering, etc. And then on the back side you do have the paddle shifters for the 8-speed simulated CVT transmission. Now going through the buttons here, on the left side you have your forward and reverse for the track selection, so this will skip songs or replay them depending on which direction you do push. Source is going to change the actual source, so you can cycle through FM, AM, XM, and I believe your USB or Bluetooth connection as well. You can see it is even cycling through Android Auto, which is fantastic. So you can cycle through all of your different sources with that button. This middle button actually does change what is displayed up there on the small, roughly 4-inch screen on the infotainment system. So that is a pretty basic function in that regard. Then we have your phone call as well as hang up or volume mute buttons. There's your voice commands. You can simply press that and it will bring up the built-in voice command on the infotainment system. And then finally, we have the main volume controls for the actual radio and system volume in and of itself, which is just kind of a toggle button that will display up here on the digital cluster, as well over there on the top of the infotainment screen. So that's pretty much those buttons in a nutshell. Now moving over here to the cruise control and driver assistance technology. First one I want to run through is this S&I drive, which essentially changes some of the CVT programming. You can see there's S drive, there's I drive, a little bit of a flatter, smoother curve with the I drive, and then S is going to be kind of your sport drive mode, if you will, for the performance of this vehicle. Next, we have some of the cruise control. So to set it or turn it on, you press that top one right there. It will bring up a little bit of a different menu in the digital cluster there. You can see if you toggle it on and off, brings up that additional kind of driver assistance screen there. Set is down, forward is resume on that little toggle right here. This is going to be your distance and gap adjustment for the adaptive cruise control. And then finally, we have the little steering wheel icon, which is going to be your lane centering and lane keeping assist functionality. So this vehicle does have a little bit more of an advanced lane centering technology, although I will say it's not the ultimate performance out there, but it works fairly well as a whole. So that's going to be the driver assistance and drive mode buttons here on the right side. And then you do have additional drive modes for the actual all-wheel drive system located here at the top of the infotainment system, including snow, normal, deep snow, and mud modes. So this one's kind of pertains more to the throttle response and the transmission, and that one is going to be more in relation to the all-wheel drive system. So starting out with the cluster itself, on the left side you have your tachometer as well as engine coolant temperature in the bottom left-hand corner, and on the right side you have your speedometer with the current fuel tank level in the bottom left-hand of that gauge over there. Now in the middle, like I said, you have a roughly 4-inch digital screen that is controlled on the steering wheel. It is a color display, although most of the menus are going to be displayed in kind of this black and white theme, which is a little bit unfortunate, but it is a fairly high resolution. Certainly not the most high resolution out there, but does the job and shows all of your information very pertinently. So at the top of this kind of main home screen, I like to call it, you have your MPG plus or minus. So essentially this is your real-time MPG that will show you what kind of MPG you're getting. Obviously sitting here idling, it's going to be on full negative, but if you're coasting down a hill or just driving normally, that'll definitely be towards the positive side of the gauge. Then in the middle, you have your current time, your outside ambient temperature, you have your digital speed readout, engine stop start on off indicator, current gear selection, your current drive mode selection. So you have the S and I drive for that little I symbol at the bottom. Then you have your current trip information. You can see we're on trip A currently. And then you have your odometer at the very, very bottom at 4,891 miles. Now cycling through and using that multimedia toggle switch on the left side, you can cycle through the top one. There is the average MPG and current estimated fuel range in that top section right there. Cycle it one more time, we have another MPG readout with current fuel range. Maybe this is for trip B. Cycling it one more time, we have your engine stop start total time that it is basically used. You can see, I think that indicates roughly 10 minutes of engine stop off. And then you have your total distance roughly maybe saved using the engine idle stop and go system, which essentially turns the engine off at stoplights and stuff just to conserve fuel and stuff like that. So that's that screen. Excuse me, that is this screen right here. It actually shows you your current time, 2 minutes and 11 seconds. Then we have a screen that shows some sort of time, which I believe that indicates roughly 10 minutes. This might be your current drive time. So we've been idling for just under 10 minutes, and then we have total miles driven, obviously 0 on this engine start session. Then moving up one more time, we have your individual TPMS or tire pressure monitoring system. Obviously you do have to drive just a little bit to get these sensors to actually activate, but that will show you the current PSI in the tires right there. And then cycling it one more time, we have your infotainment current source. Like I said, you can change between FM, AM, FM, Bluetooth, your Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, etc. in that screen up there. And then finally cycling it through one more time, we have your total engine time as well as your ambient outside temp. So I think that's all of the features of this screen in a nutshell. Now, if you do want to press this trip information button right here, it will actually toggle the bottom between A, B, and your total distance between those. They are the same, unfortunately, at the moment, but you can hold that down for about 3 seconds and it will reset. One of them, just like demonstrated right there, as you can see, trip B is now reset, but then you can toggle back to A and it will retain all that information. So that's a look at the cluster in a nutshell, fairly basic in design. Now let's move into the infotainment system, which is where most of the physical vehicle controls as well as your day-to-day interaction will be. So moving over here to the infotainment system, I want to run through some of the main identifiers or the main sections of the screen before we get into all of the actual modes and the tiles themselves. So starting at the top, you have your outside ambient temp once again, your current time, as well as your current connectivity with the Bluetooth, your cell service signal, as well as your battery life on the phone if connected. Just below that, you have your little dial that you can cycle through different pages at the top of the infotainment system. So the first page is going to be your current source. This will change with Android Auto, FM, AM, XM, for example. So that's your current media that is playing through the audio system. Next, we have your current water temp, which is your coolant temp, oil temperature, as well as your average speed for the current trip that you are on. You can see if you change the trip between A and B, that will change that number right over there. Then we have your current conditions weather-wise for your area. Not exactly sure where this information is pulled from, but that is some of that data that you can see up there. And then finally, we have your X mode, all-wheel drive, drive mode selection. Like I said, there is snow, dirt, normal, deep snow, and mud drive modes. And I believe this can only be changed at lower speeds or while you're stopped. I've noticed the screen actually gets totally grayed out when you're driving at higher speeds, so that makes me believe that you cannot change the drive mode for the all-wheel drive going very quickly. So that's that top screen in a nutshell. Next, moving on to the center portion of the screen itself. This is going to be the screen that will change with Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, and some of the other menus within the system. For example, if you hit radio, you can see this entire section right here did change, albeit very slowly, but that is kind of the usable space you have for your backup camera, Android Auto, etc. inside of the infotainment system. Down here towards the bottom, you have a fixed in place tile icon with your vehicle settings, automatic vehicle hold, engine stop start on off. There's your current device connections. So this is, I believe, for your Bluetooth and stuff like that. You can manage your devices right there. Then you have some sort of user profile all the way on the right side, where you can add and edit driver profiles. And then finally, we have a dedicated home button in the middle, which I actually do like that feature quite a bit, as you can always return back to this dedicated home screen. Then finally, moving on to the very bottom of the screen itself, we have a fixed in place digital climate control readout, as well as these physical buttons on the left and right hand side for the dual zone automatic climate. So essentially, these are just temperature buttons to adjust the temperature up and down. But if you want to do anything else with the climate control outside of the front and rear defrost, then you do have to open this page up here at the bottom. And there you can see all of your sync, automatic modes, AC on and off, recirc. There's where the air is actually flowing inside the cabin via the floor, the upper section, and defroster right there. As you can see, it actually does time out after just a couple seconds and returns you back to the home screen, which is actually somewhat nice. If you're driving along and adjusted your thing and don't want to hit the actual home button, you can actually just let it return home by itself. Obviously, with some of the physical buttons, you have your hazards. Here's your dedicated volume and power knob, and there is your tune knob over there. Does have NFC integration, it seems, so if you want to pair your phone like that, looks like you can do that. And you do have a USB-C, USB-A, and auxiliary input down here just above the wireless charging pad for additional inputs. So with that information in mind, let's go ahead and run through all the dedicated tiles and menus, starting out with the radio screen. You can see at the top you have FM, AM, FM, and Sirius XM. So these are going to be your kind of core sources, if you will, inside most new vehicles. You can see the system is fairly laggy, but that is something I've discussed before. Here's all of your presets that you can toggle through for the main different sources. Looks like you have up to 18 different presets that you can choose. Here's your equalizer sound customization settings that are kind of quick access from the radio screen rather than going into the actual of the settings for the vehicle. So you can change all of your vocal, image, balance, fader, as well as equalizer, and do all that right there. Now returning back home, we can go into the media screen. This brings up your auxiliary, iPhone, iPod, USB, as well as Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. So these are kind of all of your additional sources inside of this vehicle. And once again, you can access the sound customization settings from this screen right there. Next, moving on to phone. This is obviously if you have a phone paired to the vehicle. It actually goes into Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, which is interesting, and brings up your actual phone menu from your, like I said, Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. So this is kind of your recent call log. You have contacts as well as more information from the actual screen there. So that is a very interesting implementation of the phone there. It doesn't actually use the call log from the phone. It actually reverts to Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. Next, moving on to apps, looks like we have some, Subaru Starlink, Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, Travel Link, as well as My Subaru apps that can be accessed through here. There's roadside assistance as well as make an appointment. And then there is the Sirius XM Travel Link. So it looks like that is where it's pulling the actual weather information from. And that's just kind of some of the additional apps within the vehicle that are also shown right here on these two. So a little bit of a redundant setting right there. Now let's go ahead and do car info. This will give you the pitch and roll as well as some vehicle maintenance items. You can see right there, you can adjust when those are needing to be changed or reset them with all in this mode right here, either via manual or automatic. So pretty cool customization that you can do with that. Then let's go over to this. This simply turns the display on and off. You have your vehicle dynamics control that you can toggle off via that icon right there, and it will also show in the cluster itself. Then we have automatic vehicle hold dedicated icon, which is also redundant down here like I mentioned. Then we have add a shortcut to a different feature of the vehicle, which you can kind of customize there. So for example, you go into radio, you can do a dedicated shortcut just to the FM screen if you really want that to show up all the time, or you do use it on a regular basis. And just going through some of these are, some of the different, phone shortcuts that you can do, different apps you can do. and different vehicle settings that you can do. So I actually do like that customization of the vehicle as well. I think that's very nifty. And then finally, we do have the vehicle valet mode up there, which if you press on that, probably gives you a passcode to input and limits some of the features and infotainment controls for those, you know, that are just temporarily borrowing your car or using the dedicated valet. So now with all that information in mind, let's go ahead and dive into the vehicle settings page, which is where a lot of the main vehicle settings are controlled. So going into it, opens up the general screen. You have the clock information and settings at the top. You have display settings, so display off, brightness dial, as well as the dedicated brightness and contrast for the actual screen itself. Then we have Wi-Fi hotspot and security information. So this vehicle does have a 4G LTE hotspot inside of it. So that is where you'll manage all of your passwords and security information for the Wi-Fi hotspot. Reminder screen, maintenance, birthday, anniversary. Toggle those on and off if you really want your car reminding you that you do have a birthday today. Then we have the valet mode settings, which is just another way to access valet mode. Meter screen. Gives you gauge initial movement as well as, you know, your eco gauge. We have camera, rear camera delay control. So this will turn the camera off after you start moving forward, or basically turn it off immediately once the vehicle is shifted from reverse into drive. So a little bit of customization there. Climate controls, we have customized climate control button. Looks like you can do choose between one of these items for the climate control button to actually access. So for example, if you want it on auto when you hit that, you can do that, or it will change it to AC, and that is this little button down here in the right hand corner. Personally, I would probably leave it on auto because I think that is genuinely one feature I use all the time, but you can customize it via those right there. Temperature units between Fahrenheit and Celsius, obviously language, tire pressure units, home screen shortcuts, welcome screen, goodbye screen. Then we have going down here, favorite widgets, birthday list, anniversary list, software update, Starlink apps recovery, factory data reset. So if you want to reset the infotainment system because you're selling the car or just bought one, done via this screen right here. Then we have system information, free source, software information. There's the current software on the infotainment screen. And that is pretty much it for this one. Now moving over into sound, we have audio at the top. This is where you'll do most of the in-depth sound customization for the speakers. So this is going to be the one that pulls up on the audio screens. But below that, we have sound restore, basically tries to enhance the audio wherever it is coming from inside the vehicle. We have virtual bass. This basically adds and corrects any bass onto the harmonic sound. Personally, I think all of these settings are not very good inside of this standard 6-speaker system. You have dynamic beat enhancer. You can read the functionality right there, but again, don't think it works too well. Then you have the speed volume control, which does compensate based on the vehicle's speed. And then finally, we have aux volume gain, which is actually might be a handy one because auxiliary inputs sometimes do have a lower volume or different volume input versus that of, say, Bluetooth or USB. So a little bit of, you know, interesting customization there. There's all of your beep, phone ring volumes, incoming call, SMS, text readout volume, voice volume, as well as last audio volume memory for the actual head unit. Next, moving on to phone, here's where you manage your devices, delete them, change the, you know, recent calls. There's your Android Auto settings. So you can see there is the current device paired, Android Auto, Wi-Fi password. And then you can change, like I said, the device name that actually shows up on your device when you're trying to pair it to the vehicle. So say you're looking for the Crosstrek name on your phone. If you don't want it named Crosstrek and want it named something else, you can input that right there. So moving to the next settings, we have radio. These are just settings for AM, FM, and XM. So it looks like if you want to subscribe to a new subscription, you can do that there for XM. AM, seek sensitivity, stuff like that, and FM, pretty sure it has, you know, very similar settings as well. Finally, moving into the car settings, we have Subaru eyesight adjustment settings, so you can turn the pre-collision braking on and off, or to an alert only mode. So if you do that, you can do setting on off. There's the collision warning, normal, lane departure, all functions, warning buzzer only, lane departure prevention function only. There's your cruise control for adaptive cruise control, Select drive on left or right. So interesting aspect there. Leading vehicle moving monitor, all that good stuff right there. Then we have the keyless entry system, which gives you an audible signal as well as flashes the hazard lights when you do lock or unlock and use that system. I really do like that a lot. And you can customize where the driver door unlock. Personally, I like all the doors to unlock when I do use the touch type door handle. But personally, that comes down to what your preference is. And then you do have rear gate trunk unlock, functions right there, where you can do all or just the rear gate. So that's that button right there. We have your defogger settings, so it'll run for 15 minutes or all the time if you want it right there. We have interior light. So this is the interior light delay. It'll do 10, 20, 30 seconds or no interior light at all. Automatic light sensor for the headlights, so light sensitivity, as well as you can link the wipers to turn the headlights on automatically if it's raining outside. So really do like that functionality. I think all vehicles should have it. I think most vehicles have it nowadays, but cool to see you can customize that there. I'd recommend leaving that on. Welcome lighting, so basically approach set time, the amount of time that it will remain on when you approach the vehicle with the proximity key fob, and then when you leave and lock the vehicle, it will give you a delay as well. Automatic door lock and unlock. Vehicle speed, so you can change this to be basically vehicle speed, shift into or out of park or off. And then finally we have door unlock. Same thing, ignition, door open, shift into or out of park. This is personally the preference I prefer there. And continuing on, we have rear seat reminder, vehicle dynamics control, automatic vehicle hold, engine auto stop, rear vehicle detection. That is the option that this one does have. X mode, drive mode. So it might be the mode that it actually reverts into, or you can just change it here as well as the screen up here at the top. Warning volume, miles, and units, all there at the bottom. Steering responsive headlights is a fantastic option. I'd recommend keeping that enabled on inside of the Crosstrek, but very nice that a vehicle in this price point does have the option for that. So personally, I like the steering responsive headlights. I think they're very, very good. But you can toggle that on and off depending on where you're driving. So that's basically the infotainment system in a nutshell. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and or found something helpful. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. If you have any additional questions or comments about how to use the system, feel free, like I said, to leave a comment. I will do my best to answer them. And like I said, hopefully this gives you a general idea of some of the possibilities and functions inside of Subaru's 11.6-inch Infotainment System Plus. This obviously does not have the built-in navigation, but I assume that would just be shown up with a tile that you could basically open in the apps or here on the main screen. Android Auto and Apple CarPlay opens up, like I said, in this small section right here. So personally, I think it is rather on the small side. I think the touch points for the main apps at the bottom of the screen here, you can see your Pandora, call, settings, etc., are very, very small and almost hard to press when you're driving down the roadway. But that's what Subaru ultimately decided to do. So, it's kind of a, personal preference, but I think these are actually very small target touch points to hit. And I would really like to see this kind of revised and maybe changed how this is laid out. But this is also somewhat limited by the vertical aspect ratio that Subaru decided to go with. So that's pretty much going to do it here for this infotainment system tour on the Subaru Crosstrek with the 11.6-inch screen. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it and or found something helpful. If you did, make sure to hit that like button below. It greatly helps out the channel's videos. Subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure to check out some other videos I have here on the 2024 Crosstrek Sport, including driving impressions, comparisons with other vehicles, stuff like that. Overall, the infotainment system is what it is inside this vehicle. I'm not going to harp on it too much, but it is a little bit on the slower side. I don't really love the vertical aspect ratio, and I think although there are some very unique and interesting settings, some of the other features are a little bit weird and just harder to use. So kind of a good and bad infotainment system as a whole. Not a huge fan of how it looks in general, but once you get used to it, it should be fairly usable on a day-to-day basis. Now, I want to give a huge thanks to Subaru for sending this vehicle out for me to test and review for you guys. Leave any comments or questions down in the comment section below on the system. Let me know if there's anything that you need clarification on or stuff like that, and I will do my best to answer them. But anyways, I appreciate the support here on the channel and hope to see you guys in the next one.